It's Wednesday, another episode of Whitening Wednesday. I am going to start doing intros because we are working on getting the podcast on streaming platforms, and intros seem to be very common that you do when you are streaming on platforms like Spotify and Apple. That hopefully will be up for early fall 2023, so we'll start releasing all of the podcast episodes on those platforms as we go. So what is our intro for this week? This week is such a fun episode. We have Emily Elliot on the show, who is a mindset coach. Now, you might be wondering, Rachel, how is a mindset coach going to add value to a teeth whitening technician? And honestly, there's a lot of value in this conversation. We chat from Emily being in a similar position to what we have all been in. Emily was an entrepreneur who found that she was unhappy in different corporate styles, went into a more quote-unquote typical role. So she was a naturopathic doctor, which she mentioned to me off air that that's similar to being an entrepreneur. She still had to get her own clients, etc. So she started in marketing, ended up going back to school and got her doctorate, and then from there still was getting that urge of wanting something different, wanting something more. So Emily did break free of that doctor's title and is now running a successful mindset coaching business. So inspiring. Now, what is even crazier to think about is Emily is actually a TEDx speaker. So she has done a TEDx before. If you can go watch it, I would highly recommend it. I listened to it, so valuable. And it's literally called, "Is It Time to Quit?" Which could mean so many different things in your life. Is it a job? Is it a relationship? Is it XYZ? I mean, it can be so relatable. And as teeth whitening technicians, I feel like this conversation is going to help you in so many parallel aspects. So what is a mindset coach? Mindset coach can be a variety of different things, but Emily really focuses on different scientific and her own approach to how the mind works and why we are wired a certain way. Is it from developmental as a child to specific experiences, etc. And a mindset coach might be something that is of interest for you. I would listen to that episode. Emily does talk to us about how, if you are considering working with a coach, what exactly it would look like, what you would do, etc. But one thing I do want to mention is I found Emily through Kelsey Rydell, who's been on the show before. Kelsey did an amazing episode all about marketing, and Kelsey has the Visionary Life podcast. And Kelsey and Emily are actually business partners on a mastermind. And that mastermind is Leap Marketing and Mindset, which, since they both have very strong backgrounds in certain categories, Kelsey's taking over the marketing side and Emily's taking over the mindset side. So incredible mastermind. I know I personally am looking into it, and she does mention it briefly in the clips, but do also look for that, as if you feel like you're stuck, you're stagnant, and you need to be in a group of like-minded individuals, or just need that extra push, need help with marketing or with mindset, maybe this mastermind is for you. So friend, are you ready to realize when it's time to quit? I'm going to stop talking now and enjoy episode 29.
Headspace, we get attached or addicted to these regulated professions. But actually, when we use a mindset and neurolinguistic programming technique called reframe, and we look at it just a little differently, not being regulated is actually a superpower, because you can be so much more expressed and be yourself and not feel like you're looking at like little letters of regulations, which can feel actually very stifling. So, well, it can feel good for the ego to be under a regulated profession. you actually can have so much more freedom if it's unregulated to just be yourself. And that's part of what I was craving, was being able to speak freely and not being like, oh, what do they think I should do? Right.
Before continuing on to this week's episode, let's take a moment to thank our sponsor. Fern Whitening Supplies is your one-stop shop for all things teeth whitening, whether that's chairside or take home. Fern literally has everything that you would need to provide a safe and effective chairside or at-home whitening treatment. If you have any questions, reach out to Fern directly, and let's get on with the show. Happy Whitening Wednesday. This is episode number 29, and today on the show we have Emily with us, and Emily is going to take us on a roller coaster, and it's going to be so fun hearing Emily's journey and also how mindset and coaching can be a huge value to an entrepreneurship journey, but then especially to our fellow teeth whitening techs who are listening, as we know we are entrepreneurs, but then Emily also follows us into this profession of uncharted territory and in an industry that is considered a little bit more unregulated. So this is going to be so great, so many parallel lines to chat about and to hear about. So Emily, thank you so much for coming on this show today and give us a rundown. I can't wait for our audience to hear how you gave up your doctorate license and what the journey has been like since.
Yes. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's such a pleasure to be here. Um, so yeah, I actually had a career in marketing, and I'm yeah, just a leaper. And I knew internally that that was not the right fit. I really wanted to help people with their health and feeling well and like their most selves. So I thought the best course of action was to go to school for 5 years and become a naturopathic doctor. And the whole way along, I kind of had these little inklings or clues that, maybe this wasn't for me, but I tried to just stay the course. I didn't quote unquote want to be a quitter, or so I thought. And then by the time that I actually graduated, I was like, oh, I don't know about this. But again, I wanted to prove to myself I could do it. So I entered a couple years of practice. And, I appreciated and liked my clients, but I really dreaded the job or the work in general. So around the time I was really feeling stuck, my intuition encouraged me to sign up for a coaching program to learn how to be mindset, success coach, help people to overcome their blocks. And I was still doing naturopathy in the day and this training at night. And sometimes when we have our babies kind of force us to step into our highest selves. So when my son Koa was born, I knew that, you know what? It's time. This isn't me. I don't feel expressed. I feel really heavy at the end of the day. And he helped me to realize, this little tiny baby, that it was safe to move on and trust my gifts. So I launched my mindset and success coaching business in 2021, really early on. And I've been doing it now for 2.5 years. And I feel like me, I feel that lightness and playfulness and joy return. So it was really learning to trust myself and trust my intuition.
I can imagine, and what a journey to, start in marketing, then weave over into the medical end, and then now full on coaching, etc., which is incredible. So what was one thing, like, as I mentioned, a lot of our listeners are teeth whitening technicians, and that comes with a variety of different backgrounds. We may have some beauty professionals, medical professionals, dental professionals. And I know that the majority of them feel very linked to their professional title. And I can imagine you probably felt really linked to your professional title as well. So how did you overcome letting that title go and falling into, again, this new title where I might be wrong, but the way I kind of figure coaching is similar to the teeth whitening space, where teeth whitening is unregulated.
Yeah.
It's uncharted, there's no governing bodies, there's no licensing, etc., which I can imagine coaching is probably very similar.
Yeah.
So how do you find, especially some people, I know we get it as text all the time, we get looked down upon for being in an unregulated, uncharted industry. So, how did you find really turning around and learning to drop that title that we get so stuck on, and then feeling comfortable and motivated in this unregulated side?
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? Because I think when we're in a certain headspace, we get attached or addicted to these regulated professions. But actually, when we use a mindset and neurolinguistic programming technique called reframe, and we look at it just a little differently, not being regulated is actually a superpower because you can be
Yeah,
so much more expressed and be yourself and not feel like you're looking at like little letters of regulations, which can feel actually very stifling. So, well, it can feel good for the ego to be under a regulated profession. You actually can have so much more freedom if it's unregulated to just be yourself. And that's part of what I was craving was being able to speak freely and not being like, oh, what do they think I should do? Right. So for example, in a regulated profession, let's say one of the holistic ones, if you weren't feeling well and it was like, oh, what should I take? I mean, and I can see the value of it too. You shouldn't really rhyme off any prescriptions because you don't know enough about the person yet, right?
for sure.
Then, to the same extent, because we're looking at duality here, if we're never talking about natural health remedies out loud, there's people that may never find it. Like if I'm
True.
just shutting down. So I think we really have to focus on the fact that there can be a lot of power in not having regulations.
That is such a great way to put it. And I
Yeah.
even personally preach, especially to a lot of our dental professionals, to not get hung up on promoting your business as a dental professional,
Yeah.
because especially with a teeth whitening service, and probably very similar to your practice prior as well, is it's about the client experience, which should be, you should be the experience, not
Yes.
your license.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And people are addicted and in love to titles like
Mhm.
doctor, lawyer, teacher, which are all great professions, but it's because we don't have the awareness about how many cool professions can exist now.
So
So
true.
this is also a reframe. It's like we love all of the, oh, you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're a teacher. We love the applause, but it's also like, what if you're the person to go teach how a nutritionist or an acupuncturist can radically change your life, right? So it's just trusting ourselves more. And that's a big part of what I talked about in my TED talk was the more you trust yourself, that's magnetic. That gets people's buy-in. And it's like give yourself your own applause.
And we forget to do that, don't we?
Yeah,
We really forget to not only applaud ourselves, but also feel confident and respect ourselves too. It's,
yeah,
I mean, we could probably chat so many things about all your different mindset techniques,
yeah.
but I can imagine that there probably is something really linked to mindset to remove yourself from that hamster wheel that we are all on.
Exactly.
When you decided to leave the holistic profession,
Yeah.
what were some of the first things that you thought about or did? For example, a lot of our teeth whitening technicians are working their businesses part time. So a lot of them are still very full time in their full time careers.
Yeah.
And of course, their end goal would to be to work their business full time, but
Mhm.
they are afraid to quit. I can imagine there's a variety of different reasons, financially being the biggest one. But
Yeah.
from your experience, what was one thing that you really investigated and looked in on when you were deciding to change paths or to quit? What was one thing? Was it creating a monthly budget to see what you could walk away from? Or was there something else that I'm not even thinking of that's not financially tied that you
Yeah.
really do recommend thinking about when you are deciding to make a change or to quit?
Yeah, and if I go back on my path, I've had to think about this many times, right? Like leaving a marketing job to go back to a very expensive private school that I paid for myself was, you know, it was tricky emotionally because I had to sit down and say, there will be a while where you may not go out for fancy dinners or buy the shirt or take the vacation while you do this, because it's like your soul is growing. And that's actually more gratifying than the shirt or the vacation or whatever, right? If you're unhappy and you go on vacation, you're not going to enjoy vacation anyways,
So
right?
true.
So I think these are big questions to ask ourselves is, of course we need those basics day to day, like nutritious food. And we're not saying cut that, but is there stuff you're spending money on to try and make yourself happy because you're unhappy because you're in your job? So it's a kind of about breaking this cycle here, right? um, so I think that's a really big one financially. And the other thing is there is this balance of practicality. You do want to have a bit of cushion and knowing so your nervous system is not in overdrive. And there has to be an element of faith that you may not have 5 years of a salary lined up before you make this switch. And through aligned actions and putting these foundations into place, plus believing in the universe, that this is why stuff takes off, right? So I think that there's both. It's looking at things very from like just tactics point of view. And then there's this energetic piece of magic, which is what I do as a coach. I do group coaching and one-to-one coaching as a mindset and success coach to help people bring the magic and intuition back into their life. So I live between both worlds.
That is so fun. And this is a great lead way to my next question, which was, being the majority of us teeth whitening technicians, where could we work in a coach? What would make a coach beneficial for our businesses, especially, I'm assuming, from just the entrepreneur mindset?
Yeah.
What would be something that you would recommend if you are in a specific situation or there's a certain block that you're really struggling with? What would be a great little flash that, hey, a mindset coach is something that could really, really help push you forward?
Yeah, it's a great question because I don't think we really realize how often in a day we're having limiting thoughts. Like if we counted them, we would probably say, whoa. So big ones are, I'm not good enough.
Mm.
Imposter syndrome is huge. Overwhelm is a big one. Money blocks, comparison. I was going to say the word comparisonitis, but I think, you know, just start noticing. When you start
Mhm.
noticing your negative thoughts and tallying them up, you'll be like, this is just as bad for my health and my vision for a great life as it is to not brush my teeth. So I call it mental hygiene, right? So when you have someone like myself there to hold the mirror and ask the big questions and reprogram the beliefs, you wake up more confident and more yourself and happier, right? So I would say that just start noticing. And if you get that intuition, like I could use the help to step forward into my greater self, reach out. Let's do the thing because when your intuition says it, you have to listen.
Oh, for sure. And then I
Yeah.
can imagine once your mindset is in a better space, then the things that you were avoiding that you didn't even realize that you were avoiding will just start domino affecting. And then that's when you're going to see massive growth. Is it's not, I bet there's probably a lot of things that aren't even technically that big of a difference to do to move your
Yeah.
business forward, but you
Yeah.
just not doing them is really setting you back. So really fixing your mindset to make sure that you are
Yeah.
working smarter, not harder, and then it all coming together and growing your business, which is incredible. And I can imagine it also is not even just your business, but as you mentioned, your life in general. Everything is all connected. So it would
Yeah.
probably help so many different avenues of your life cycle. So
Yeah.
walk us through, if we were working with you, like how would it start? Is there like a discovery call, and then once we're like jumped in and working together, do we meet weekly, do we meet monthly? How does it work?
Yeah, so I think the discovery call is just, are we both a great fit? Do we feel pumped about this? Let's hear what's going on, and we can both say, yep, this is a good fit for both of us. Because it's just as important to my client that I feel like a good fit and vice versa. And, there are programs that have a ton of structure like XYZ, but for me, it's 12 weeks, 1 hour a week. And yes, I have a lot of methods to help, but this is co-led. So what's coming up for you this week? Because I believe everything in our life is a marker of everything else. So, if you're having a really, really hard time in your friendship and it's really bugging you, something that you and your friend are going through, everything clogs the other stuff up. So we need
Mm.
to look at every piece of the pie of your life. And then I can offer things like tapping and reframes and really cool ways to kind of reprogram thinking. But yeah, I really like it when people come to the table like, what's up this week? Because that holds all the clues. If I just sit there and teach like, a limiting belief is blah, 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 it's not practical. So I'm all about practical, action based. Like, let's see what's there and let's like hold the mirror.
That sounds like just literally something that should be done by everybody.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
So give us a quick rundown on EFT. Did I pronounce that correctly? Correct me if
Yeah.
I'm wrong, but that is like hypnotherapy. Am I right? Kind
Okay,
of.
so it's kind of, there's pieces of it. Like we do learn a bit of hypnotic technique in my training. The EFT actually it's called emotional freedom technique, and it uses meridians in the body, which is based
Mm.
on Chinese medicine. It's how energy pathways run through our body. And often when we're having a hard time in life, they become energetically blocked, which kind of makes us not feel energetic or bad mood. So by tapping on our thoughts, we actually can rewire the energy. So it's making us feel more luminous and joyful. So we can tap on thoughts and turn them into something productive. So it can be as simple as tapping on a headache, or a limiting belief around money, or feeling good enough. And I've been trained in Chinese medicine through my naturopathic doctor training in the past. One of my favorite modalities. So to be able to combine that with mindset is really powerful.
That's so cool. So
Yeah.
cool. And
Yeah.
another thing that you mentioned that I think we should definitely highlight, and I like to say it all the time too, especially in the teeth whitening space where since it's unregulated, there's so many
Yeah.
different paths of life that come to becoming a technician. There's not like a straight educational background. And I always like to mention that wherever your winding road has been prior to, you
Yeah.
probably have picked up so much great educational little pieces of wisdom that you didn't even realize would help you later on,
Yeah.
but totally does. So for example, I can imagine your marketing background, your naturopath, etc. It's
Yeah.
all probably helped you in so many different ways
Yes.
in your business right now.
Yeah, you have to trust the path because it gives you your unique edge, right? So people are like, oh, I'm not good enough. And I'm like, look back at your life and you'll often find stuff that makes you so you. So, you know, Even if you're the teeth whitening expert that loves fashion, or the teeth whitening
Mm.
expert that loves to talk about sports, you're going to find your niche, because they're there equally to be around your energy as they are to get a treatment that feels good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so amazing to highlight.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
Well, Emily, this has been so fun, so helpful. I know our listeners are going to be so intrigued and will be definitely following along with you, and also hopefully reaching out to work together as well. So, where is the best place to follow you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Emily Elliot _. And then my website is emilyelliot.ca. And yeah, feel free to just ping me and say hello. I always love meeting new people.
That's so great. So great. Well, thank you so much, Emily. And those of you listening, thank you so much for listening to another episode of Whitening Wednesday.